News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin on day 7 of the federal government shutdown. The Senate has voted for a 5th time on a stopgap spending bill that would reopen the government until November 21st, but would not include the health care subsidies that Democrats are demanding. That bill has failed for a 5th time. But now President Donald Trump is signaling he's willing to negotiate.
We have a negotiation going on right now with the Democrats that could lead to very good things. And I'm talking about good things with regard to health care.
President Trump did not say specifically which Democrats he's negotiating with. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says it's not him.
Neither Leader Schumer or myself have heard a word from the administration about resolving this issue, making clear to us that the White House wanted to shut the government down.
It's House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Later, President Trump posted on Truth Social that he'd be willing to work with Democrats, but only after they allowed the government to reopen. He's also suggested layoffs of federal workers could be triggered if the shutdown continues much longer. Those workers will begin to miss paychecks this Friday. The military will start going without pay October 15th. That's unless the government reopens.
Well, Nathan, President Trump is facing more pushback over his efforts to send the National Guard to counter immigration protesters in major cities. The state of Illinois is suing over the president's plan to deploy the Guard to Chicago. But a federal judge is declining to rule right away on the state's request for a 2-week halt to the deployment. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says the president's moves are entirely political.
The Trump administration is following a playbook. Cause chaos, create fear and confusion, make it seem like peaceful protesters are a mob by firing gas pellets and tear gas canisters at them. Why? To create the pretext for invoking the Insurrection Act.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker denies the White House's claims that local police are not doing enough to protect immigration and customs enforcement. U.S. District Judge April Perry is not ruling immediately on the state's request for a temporary restraining order, but says she's troubled by a lack of clarity on where troops would be mobilizing and what they'd be doing. She's asked the Trump administration to delay its plans until she holds a hearing on Thursday.
Turning to the political crisis in France now, Karen, President Emmanuel Macron is giving his outgoing Prime Minister Sebastian Lecornu until tomorrow night to negotiate a last-ditch deal to salvage the government. That decision buys Macron a little more time to decide his next steps. For the latest, let's go to Paris and check in with Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Stephen Carroll.
What a 24 hours it's been, where we heard, a cabinet only announced on Sunday night for the Prime Minister to resign yesterday morning, only to be told, no, wait, go back and try again. You get an extra 48 hours to try and negotiate some sort of compromise that might eventually lead to a budget.
Bloomberg's Stephen Carroll says Macron's options include appointing a new prime minister, calling a parliamentary election, or resigning. Opposition groups have clamored for fresh legislative elections.
Well, Nathan, today marks 2 years since the October 7th attacks on Israel. Hamas and Israel are continuing indirect negotiations for a second day in Egypt. We get the very latest from Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersecci.
There is a degree of optimism that perhaps this is the diplomatic breakthrough that the families of those hostages have been waiting for, that Palestinians have been striving for. President Trump says, I really think we're going to have a deal. He's personally invested in this, and you can question his motivations. But what is very clear is the U.S. right now, the administration is very focused on getting a deal across the line, because President Trump seems to think that he's the only world leader capable of getting to peace in Gaza. So there is a lot of stake. Right now, there's a lot of focus from the international community. Many people are saying that this is perhaps the last real effort and last attempt to get to some form of a resolution. So cautious optimism prevailing.
Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersecci. 1,200 people were killed and another 250 were abducted on the attack in Israel 2 years ago. More than 67,000 Palestinians have been killed in the conflict. That's according to the Hamas-run health ministry in the territory.
Turning to the markets now, Karen, futures are little changed to lower this morning, a day after stocks closed at yet another record high. The S&P 500 has now gained for 7 straight sessions. That's its longest winning streak since early May. Leslie Marks is Chief Investment Officer for Equities at McKinsey Investments.
When you look at the factors that are driving equities, it's been primarily, of course, price momentum. The things that are going higher are what people want, of course, but also earnings momentum has been a top factor. And earnings momentum is a very strong fundamental that we can really anchor ourselves on and say that actually with these companies reporting strong earnings, we can feel comfortable with the higher valuations that they're trading at today.
Leslie Marks of McKenzie Investments. The S&P 500 rose 0.4% yesterday.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.